Hello everyone, thank you all for coming to this Kaseya Quick Start, and I'm very excited to see every one of you here because really wanted to share a lot of information about this Kaseya VSA that everyone here is using so that you guys can further utilize it to the max, to the best of Kaseya VSA to help optimize your environment and to make your life easier. So just to introduce to you about myself a bit. So I used to be a teacher. Surprisingly, I used to be a teacher. That's why right now I'm so happy and I'm so excited to share anything I know about Kaseya VSA to everyone here. So I used to be a teacher in teaching IT computers, such as disassembling hardware, disassembling all the hard disks and all the RAM. So at those time, or those big chunky machines. And after that, I teach the student how to do software installation, operating systems, printers, laptops, servers, or such as spinning up a web server, building a web server in the lab, and at the same time get the student to see how the website work in real life. So such as networking as well, and many other IT basic technology. And then after that, what I did was I went ahead to become a NOC, a call center. So what my task to do is close as much ticket as I can. If some people call me, they have an issue with the computers, all I need to do is just remote in and try to solve the problem as much as possible. And that's where I start to build all the SOP to become a senior NOC to make sure that, we follow processes and best practices during my NOC days. Then after that, eventually I ventured into Kaseya VSA. So during my NOC days, I have used various different type of remote management software. So one of it including Kaseya VSA, which of all the RMM I've used to support the end user. So Kaseya VSA for me is still my favorite because of all the function I have in one panel. So that's why today I'm going to share with you about some Kaseya VSA setting as well. So today is all about quick start. So if you guys have any question, just post in the chat and we'll try our best to answer. So then finally I came to Kaseya VSA. Now I'm starting to go full scale on Kaseya VSA. So that's all about me. So now we're going to deep dive down into Kaseya, and today's session is about quick start. So I'm going to show you guys on all the settings and all the things that we need to do in order to jumpstart. Let's say for instance, if your engineer just get on board, you can show them, teach them about all these Kaseya quick start so they're able to get on board quickly. So now let me show you my screen. I have with myself a Kaseya instance that I have. So over here, once you log in, you have your Kaseya VSA. So I'm going to start with the most important one, which is creating users. So users is very important in a system because first of all, user allows you to log in, and at the same time, users allow you to have audit logs to know who's been using the system, who's logging in at what time, who's doing what, and so on. At the same time, in Kaseya VSA, we have so many functions over here. So what we want to essentially do is that we want to make sure that we set the right permission and set the right access to the correct admin. So that, for instance, let's say agent procedure is a very powerful module. We do not want to have everyone to have full access to that module. So the first one I'm going to share with you guys is creating user roles and scope. So if you go to system, there's a user roles over here, and there's a scope. So let me explain a bit about user roles. So user roles is a place where you set permission on what access does the specific user have. So for example, I can restrict him to system access, to maybe let's say monitoring settings and other modules as well that you do not want him to have full permission. So let's say I'm just going to create one row. Let's say this belongs to level 1. So level 1 support will have, let's say, basic remote function. I'm just going to select to Kaseya Advanced and save. So now I have L1. What I do is that I go ahead and set row access right. So it allows me to select which module I want to give the user. So by default, what we usually do is that we only give the user only to, let's say, agent and remote control support, and that's it. So we're going to disable all to make it quick. And then we're going to just enable agent, audit. Audit is a part where I want to see all information, audit, live connect, any other thing, I'll just leave it to disable. So I'm so sorry, this one it got hang a bit. So let me just refresh the page to get back to the same page as well. So the roles essentially in simple is to restrict access to certain modules. So that's of course the best practices to everyone, so that everyone do not have system role, because if everyone have system role, then it will conflict settings. So for example, user A will set this setting, user B will set another setting. So once you have your role set, the next one is what we do is called the scopes. Now the scopes allows you to set which permission does the user have to which organization. So for example, you have, let's say in your own company, you might have VIP, finance, accounts, and so on. If let's say, for example, a technician, usually let's say a certain group, they are only in charge of, let's say, sales and others, and then you do not want them to have access to, let's say, VIP machines. Only a level 3 could have access to VIP machines. So what we do is we create another one called, let's say, a scope to say default IT groups. So once we have the default IT groups, and we just assign the right groups accordingly. So over here, imagine I have external development group. So let's say we have VIP and so on. We uncheck VIP, we only allow certain group to it. Let's save. So now, if let's say we were to create a user and we just assign default IT group and the scope, if the user were to log in, he will only have access to a certain module and also these 3 organizations out of the many organizations that you can have. So let's move on to create a user. So in order to create user, we just go ahead to user security and click new. So best, of course, to put in email address, just in case the user forgot password, the system will send out a forget password email address to this specific address listed. So let me put my address for instance. And then over here, I have the scopes, which is, for example, L1, and then we have the default IT group, and put my first name, and this belongs to my organization. And the username, I recommend everyone to follow the email address because easier to remember rather than having a different account to do so. So you can put your own password, let's say a company default password. Yep. So if it's not different, then you can have the option to change the password at next logon or so on. So what my best recommended is always make sure that you require the password change at next login so that the user will need to change their own password. Yep. So let me cancel this because I have my account. The next one I want to show you guys is, let's say, securing the admin access or securing the user access. So for example, in Windows, if the user does not need to access that specific machine, you disable the user so that it reduces a vector attack. Because if you did not disable the user, the hacker will try to have guessing password to attempt to attack. So what we do, we can do something called a disable account from the VSA. So all you need to do is, if let's say this user is no longer working in your company, in your organization, if you do not want to delete for some audit purposes, you can just disable it. Disabling the user means the user will not be able to log in and it treated as if the user is not available at all. So of course in VSA you can have as many users as you want, up to 999. So it's 9,999. So if you have that number of IT admin, I'm looking forward to meet your team. Yep. So if you want to enable back, just go ahead and enable account. So enable back, and you can, let's say the user forgot a password, or you want the user to change the password, you can click force change or set a password. Or if you are sure to delete the user, go ahead and select the user that you want and click delete. Now, my recommendation is always to only have a maximum of 2 system admin of VSA. So over here, if the initial role and scope, you can see there's a default called system. So the system will grant you access to everything, have everything full access, full permission, but with that, you need to make sure you have at least 2. Why not 1? Okay, just in case the main system admin got locked out, at least you have a backup system admin to do changes. So that's why I usually recommend 2 system admin, so that at least in case one forgotten the password, you have another system admin to come in and reset it just in case. So 2 system admin at best. No more, no less. Okay, so that sums up user role and access. You can even define such as logon hours. So sometimes we do not want the admin to do remote support at maybe after 7, because after 7 VIP will bring their own machine back and they are doing their own stuff. So we do not want them to have remote access at all. So let's say I'm going to go, let's say system, and I go ahead and click deny, or between this certain time, Saturday and Sunday, I deny it so that on Saturday, Sunday, they could not access the Kaseya system at all. So then, if let's say you want to check what the user has been doing, what the administrator of Kaseya has been doing, you can go ahead to user roles. This will show like specific, like just now I have enabled this user, I have disabled this user, and these logs can't be deleted. So that's why with all this powerful access, you have all these logs that to show you for audit purposes. All right, so that's for user log. And finally, you have the 2FA. So 2FA by default has already been enforced. So what does 2FA means is that when you log in to the Kaseya system, you need to have a secondary factor to key in the 6-digit code so that in order for you to log in successfully. So over here, if you can see those X, those are not enrolled. So the moment you, how you enroll is that the moment you log in, you just need to go use your phone. If let's say you're on an Android, you go to Google Play Store. If you're on iPhone, go to App Store to download either Microsoft Authenticator, let's say LastPass Authenticator, Google Authenticator, and just scan the barcode upon login. So once you have scanned that, every time you log in, you need to open up the Authenticator app to key in the 6-digit number in order for you to log in. Yep. So that's the 2-factor authentication. So now we have covered the user. The next one I want to do is creating groups. So it's very important to create group as well, so that at least in the future you need to apply policy or need to apply some global setting. You go ahead and apply to certain group instead of everyone at one go. So the group allows you to divide between, let's say, it could be, these are the few scenarios. It could be you managing multiple customers, or it could be you managing multiple departments, or it can be you managing multiple groups within your company. So let's create one. In order to create one, we just need to create an ID. So let's say, for example, this is Raven Sendramberhat, STN-BHD. So we just need to copy to the one that have the asterisk organization name and paste. So the ID, we usually put it in the short form, like let's say Raven, so ID. Then the organization name, you can put the other information for your reference, such as the country, zip code, everything else. But for this quick start sake, we're just going to leave it there and just click save. So now we have Raven group. So with this Raven group, you can further create machine groups, which allow you to maybe deep dive into different different departments. So for instance, let's say accounting, and then the parent group will be Raven. So let's say, for example, this is called admin, and then you have the parent group called Raven root. So now you have this, you're allowed to, differentiate between the accounting machines and the admin. So let's say in the future, someone would call for support and tell you their machine name, at least you know that, okay, this is from accounting department. So it allows you to find the machine quickly. Yep. So now we covered the group management. Let's go ahead and start to do agent deployment. So there are a few ways we can do agent deployment. So one is that from here, we just created this group. There's a called deploy agent URL. So we go ahead and click the link. When you click the link, it will download agent installer. So the moment you install this agent, it will automatically check into the accounting group. Or alternatively, you can go ahead to agent page. There's something called a deploy agent. You just download. So the difference is that this deploy agent is a generic agent installer. It will check in by default to a group called unnamed. So if it checks into there, you need to manually go ahead and select this machine, manage, change group, change it to maybe, let's say, Raven, accounting or admin, whichever machine it belongs to. So those are the two options for you to deploy the agent. So the moment you deploy the agent, let's say you download the installer, all you need to do on the end user machine, you just need to run it as admin privilege. Double click it, run it. There's no configuration required. You will start the loading bar and everything installed, then you will start to check into the machines. So that's all you need to do for deploying agent. So now the next thing I want to show you guys is package creation. So let's say I have like multiple sites. I want to give my technician to, these are the installer, go ahead and go to the site and install. So what you have there here is that you have a managed package. So the managed package allows you to create package and download the installer by default so that it can check into the correct group that you have defined. So let me create one package. Let's say, for example, it's under Raven Accounting. And I click Next. I can select the ID, which is to check into Raven Accounting. So this will set the parameters of the package. The moment you install, then you can go ahead and auto check in, so you do not need to manually move the computer around. Yep. So now that we have this package created, we can go ahead and download package. Then you can save it into your pen drive or your removable storage anywhere, or you can put it in share drive so that the IT can go ahead and install the machines from the package field. So yeah, these are the packages. And if, by the way, just to let you know, if you have any question, just drop at the chat below. We'll try to help you as much as possible to answer those questions. All right. So now let's move on back to the agents. Let's say, for instance, if that machine is no longer belonging to this specific group, I want to change it to a different group. I can go ahead and click on this machine, click on Manage, Change Group, and select, let's say, Raven Accounting. Now it belongs to accounting, and click Save. So now that machine has gone to Raven Accounting. So Raven Accounting, and there you go. This specific machine appears in this group. So that's how you change group among each others. All right. So the next thing I want to show you guys is remote control. So Kaseya wouldn't be Kaseya without the Kaseya remote control, is that? So I hope that rhymes. But anyway, back to the point. So Kaseya, they have a feature called remote control. So remember, we have another application to do remote control, so which is the Kaseya remote control. At first time, when you click on this icon, let's say this icon, you want to remote into Yoda machine, just find the icon and click on it. So on first time, you ask you to open Live Connect or cancel, but before you install the application, you ask you to download. So go ahead and download. So remember this, that download button is only applicable if you are using Kaseya for the first time and have not downloaded or installed Kaseya Live Connect. So this only install on the technician or the admin PC that is using Kaseya. So once you install that, you are able to go ahead and use Kaseya Remote Control or Kaseya Live Connect. So I have installed by myself. Let's open a Live Connect. So right now, you open up a remote control session between me, the admin, and also the end user. So I'm just going to, if this is a server, I have the button over here. Because if I were to click on keyboard, Control Alt Delete, I might not send it to the machine. So what I do, I just click Control Alternate Delete, and then type in my password to log in. And there we go, a remote control. So you can even do screen recording as well. So this can be automated, but this one is at the moment manually start recording and stop recording. So this recording will be stored on the server later on, so that you can review it later for audit purposes, or you can do it for knowledge transfer. All right. So there's another favorite thing about Kaseya is that the Live Connect. Now that is the most interesting part about Kaseya, is that Live Connect option. So what does Live Connect give you? Live Connect is a non-intrusive remote session. So it gives you the 90% remote configuration capability to you, except the GUI session. So for example, in the Kaseya remote just now, we have demonstrated that we can remote control and click on the buttons inside the server, whereby in this live connect, you won't be able to, control the GUI, but you only have a thumbnail of what's the user currently doing, and you can do a lot of backend command, such as file transfer. You can even download file from the endpoint to yourself, or you can upload from your machine to the endpoint, vice versa. So these are the Live Connect. These are the background things you can do with Kaseya Live Connect, and then you can do this without disrupting the end user. So the best scenario is that you can do it, like for instance, if the user say he or she is busy, but you have the time to troubleshoot now. So instead of waiting for the end user to be free, you just need to live connect into it, gather as much things you can, such as the files or event logs, or let's say services try to attempt the first level troubleshooting. And this is the Live Connect. Yep. So that's Live Connect. The next one is remote policy. We do understand that remote control just now, it's a silent remote. So the end user would not know if, let's say, you have remote access to the machine. So in Kaseya, we have a pre-built called the remote control policy, which allows you to set either by user role or by machine policy. So the machine policy means that you set the policy on the machine level. If it's user, what you do is that you set it based on the L1 or L2 you have created. So let me just go ahead and set a machine policy. So the machine policy allows you to set a remote policy such as require remote admin node to start control. So what does it mean is that whenever the admin control, it needs to provide a reason why it remote control. So it will store in the logs for future reference. And then remote control all session. So by default, this will help to automate everything. And then after that, these are all the checkbox, and then you have the remote option, which is silent take control, which is demonstrated just now. Or you can do ask permission, approve if no one is logged in, or require permission is that deny if no one is logged in. So what does it mean is that if the technician were to remote access into the machine, it will ask the end user for permission to click yes or no. And then if, let's say, the user click no, the session won't be established. If the user click yes, then only the session will establish. So these are the 4 options allows you to set so that you can help to safeguard the so-called the silent remote that we have. So these are the machine policy, which my favorite, usually what I do is that I set by user role policy, because sometimes the VIP may trust the senior more. So we can do, like, for example, the senior will have silent control, and then for maybe L1 and L2 onwards, we have a certain permission required when remoting into the machines. So that's remote policies. Now, after remote policy, I'm going to touch a bit about audits. So audit is where all your machine shows everything information about the IP addresses, the softwares, the hardware, everything. So how does this happen is that the moment you install agent, the agent will run a background check on every information and then store it inside Kaseya server. So that's why you have the audit part. So just in case, for example, if you come to a machine summary and you see that your machine is over here, but there's nothing much populated, the CPU doesn't populate, the hardware doesn't populate enough information, that could mean that the audit has not successfully run. You can either trigger it manually, or by default, it will do it automatically the moment you install agent. But just in case, if it doesn't show up, go ahead and click the machine and click Run Audit Now. So then you have 3 types of audit to choose from, which is baseline, latest, system. Baseline is where you first run the audit to check all the hardware information, the RAM, anything has been changed. Same goes to system information. And then the latest audit, which is such as software installation. By default, all these are run automatically, so you do not need to come here and configure, but just in case if there's any information missing, you can go ahead and run the audit. So now, if let's say you want to know for this machine, what is the IP address? The traditional way is that I remote into the machine, I start to run something to see what's the IP address, what are the software, I need to manually eyeball it. So in Kaseya VSA, you can use the audit part to see what are the software has been installed. Like in this case, this is software standard evaluation. Let's say the add and remove program as well, what we have inside here, and let's say hardware status, like what disk we have inside, PCI, and so on. So this is a very great place for you to get all the information about the machine. So I hope you're clear with the audit. So the next one is I want to show you guys about the custom field. So the audit collects any data that is extractable by software, but what if you want to add your information such as serial number? Now we know that serial number is a hard coded on the sticker. It's not from the system. So Kaseya allows you to set something called a custom field. So you go ahead to go custom field, and you can go, let's say, asset ID tag, and then set the custom field type to string. So then click save it. Now this custom field will be available to all the machine the moment you create a custom field. So now all you need to do is just go ahead and fill up the information. Let's go back to the machines. So let's scroll it all the way down. You can see there's an asset ID tag. So in order to fill up the information, I go ahead and click edit machine data and say like, okay, scroll all the way down, and then this one, let's say, is INT01, or maybe some people they put dates by the year. Let's say 07 or let's say December. This has been provisioned by December, whichever you prefer. Then you click save. So once you save, then these are the asset ID you can put in, so that let's say we go back to the agent view, we'll be able to see that as well. So which brings me back to the column field over here. So if I want to see more information rather than just the machine name, the last reboot time, I can go ahead and select to create a new column sets over here. So create new, and then let's put maybe general info. General info, and I bring online. Online is the logo which is shown over here to allow you to remote access, machine ID, current user, and then let's say asset ID tag. So click save, and then we switch between the general info, and we can see this machine, the ID, the users, the asset tag. So for me, I've created two fields, network info. This will allow me to see what are the network information, and then you have the standard audit. You can do things like BitLocker recovery, domain firewall. So this will be covered on later subject. So that's the audit. All right. So now we have the audit. Next one we want to naturally go is to do reporting, because we want to know the information for all the machine in your organization. So let's go ahead and go to Info Center. So if in case you are finding report, so that what caught me the first time, you know. Let's say I want to generate report. I keep going here to find where's the report module. Only to find that report module is called Info Center in Kaseya. Yep. So in order to create report, just go ahead and reporting and click reports. So I'm going to show you here on how to create one sample report. So I'm just going to go to new reports, and maybe because I want to have information, so usually they are by audit. So audit, next. So this will be a computer summary. And then over here, different type, we have template, report parts, and control. I usually go to report part so I can pre-build my report, and then after that, generate it later. So over here, I have machine summary, drag and drop, go to the site, and then modify what fields I want. So the first one I want to have is the computer name. So I'm just going to drag computer name, and then let's say asset ID if I have. In this stage, the asset ID is under custom field. So let's try all custom field just for example. Then I have the CPU type, whichever I want, and then put here machine summary. Next. So these are order by and group by, which are advanced filtering. Finish. Step 1, you have the same column more than once. So apparently I have most likely have 06. So I'm just going to click next, next, and finish. So save it. Report name, new. I'm so sorry, I have another one. All right, so I have a new one. All I need to do is click Run Now. And then you can either run to all your organization or you can run to specific. So in this Kaseya Quick Start, I'm going to run it on my Raven site. So submit. And these are the report will be shown to you. And the best part about the report is that you can even schedule the report. So these are the machine, these are the CPU, and these are the custom field that's created. All right. So you can download the PDF and then save it. Now, just in case there's a question may ask, okay, so now, what if I have a set of report and I want to do it automatically come to my email? The answer is yes. You all need to do is just go ahead and click on this report that you prefer. Go ahead and select a schedule. You can set it to maybe weekly, monthly, and so on. So once you have select this schedule, every month you do not need to try to remember or remind yourself that you need to generate a report. When you schedule this, it automatically come into the schedule and send to your email address. So you can either send to your email address, send to others' email address, or you can send to a third-party email address just in case you need it. So yeah, this is a reporting, this is a schedule, this is what you can do. So by default, some of the default upstream Power BI are available for you, so you can go ahead and try this report as well. So now there's a report. Now I'm going to move on to agent procedure. Now, agent procedure is called the automation library of the entire Kaseya VSA. So agent procedure allows you to do a lot of things that as long as you know what are the commands, what you can do with it, you can literally create even your own agent procedure. So why do I say it's a very powerful automation center? Let me show you an example. Let's start with reboot. Now, reboot might not seem to be a big thing about the scripting. Is like it's just a reboot, it's just sending a reboot. Now let me tell you how it can impact your time. Let's say you have a server that's scheduled to be rebooted on, let's say Saturday, 4 in the morning, Saturday. So next question is, some may be asked, who's going to be in front of the server Saturday 4 a.m.? Then we start to decide who will be the available resources. So instead of doing that, why not we use agent procedure to do scheduling? So for example, reboot, I go ahead and select this machine, this server, and I schedule the agent procedure. So I schedule it once and run it. Let's say today is to run it. I set it to run at a specific time. Let's say I set it to run at 31st, and let's say this is 4:30 a.m. So once I send this command, at 4:30 a.m. on the 31st July, it will reboot the machine. So the next one I want to make sure to clear up the confusion that this is a distribution window. Now right now, if I set distribution window of 1 hour from 4:26 a.m., what does the script do is that it will randomize the time to execute the script. So for example, if I set 1 hour, the server will reboot between 4:26 to 5:26 a.m. So that's the distribution. So these distribution windows are usually recommended when you are running scripts that are doing high processors consumption activity, such as file writing, file pushing, file downloading, and so on. So in this case, if just for reboot, I recommend you to just put distribution 1 minute, so that within 4:26 to 4:27, it will attempt to reboot the machines. All right. So that's for agent procedure. For agent procedure, there is a lot of automation market out there that has been given for free. So these are all Kaseya users around the world. They use Kaseya, and then what they do is that they create agent procedure so that they upload it here, and then we can just use it as if just for without needing the purpose to go through and recreate your own agent procedure. So that's scripting. At the same time, you can do a lot of things with scripting, such as, let's say, I'm going to open demo script. I'm going to open third-party deployment. You can install all-in-one software such as 7-Zip, Notepad, and VLC. So these things allows you to save time. Save time equal to save costs. So why does I say that is that, let's say for example, if you have an engineer that tasked to install 7-Zip, Notepad+, and VLC in a 5,000 endpoint. So imagine let's say he needs 5 minutes. Let's say he's been doing this for like 10 years, and he can just close his eyes and say double click and so on, everything has been deployed. So with this, I just create a script over here, and I select this one, install 7-zip, and so on. I select all the machine that I've installed with Kaseya Agent and click Run Now. Within a minute, all this third-party software is starting to either be deployed or has already been deployed to the machines. So this is a very powerful automation center which helps you to save time. So instead of spending 5 minutes per machine, let's say times 5,000 machine, then you need to do it repetitively by 5,000 times. So why not use Kaseya Agent Procedure to script it so that you can one-shot send it to all the machines that you have in your organization. So that's Agent Procedure. Now I hope you love, love Agent Procedure. If you have any question, just to remind you again, feel free to put it down on the chat. All right, we'll try our best to answer you. And before we move on, let's go to monitor first. Now monitor, we have two types. I'm just going to share with you two types of monitoring you have. One is the fixed monitoring. I call it the fixed monitoring because it's only fixed value. So for example, agent status, these are the default monitoring you have, such as agent status, application changes, get file, or load disk space. So let's start with agent status. This allows you to set the offline alerts. So for example, this agent stopped checking in. It most likely either is a network connection or the machine indeed go offline. So I can select the recipient and say agent has not checked in for, let's say, 2 minutes and rearm after 1 hour. So what does rearm mean is that if, let's say, after 2 minutes, I send the first one, and after 1 hour later, the server is still offline. So instead of, every few minutes sending an alert, I can rearm after 1 hour. So come back up, you are telling Kaseya to come back after 1 hour to see if my server is still offline. If it's still offline, then please send again. If it's not, then just leave it. Yep. So that's the fixed monitoring. Now the next one I want to touch on is the custom monitoring, which is called the monitor sets. So what's the difference between that is that monitor sets allows you to customize further IIS or the other Windows monitoring that's used by WMIC, such as drive C performance, system performance, the IIS servers, the services. You can set that monitor into this place so that you can monitor that specific services or that specific processes before it went hike up. So why is this important is that in this era, we do not know what we monitor. So if I were to set monitor on a machine, and when it tells me something, at least I can decide what action to take further down the road, rather than needing the end user to come to you and say that, I have a problem with my machine. That will cause some higher turnaround time, because you need to make communicated from one end to the other. So that's for monitor sets. All right. So now that we have done monitor sets, let's go ahead and find patching. So one of my favorite things also is patching. So Kaseya VSA released a new patching module called software management, which is not to be confused by patch management. So there two still function. It's just that software management right now have more development, and they're eventually going to add more features on it. So that's why I'm just going to stick to software management to do the patching. So let's start with, as you can see, I have 503 machines. So if, not 503 machines, 503 patches not patched. So I could be in deep trouble because I have not patched that much of patches. But of course, this is the quick start training. I just want to show you guys some example. So if you guys have any question, feel free to drop it in the chat as well, so that our colleague will try the best to answer you. So this software management gives you 4 steps of easy setup. The first one is scan and analysis profile. So what does it do is that you create a scan profile and then decide all this about review, reject, and approve. So if I click approve on critical, by default, if you scan that patch, it will send it to the installation profile. If you set to review, you need to review the patches before it has been sent out to the live machine. If you click reject, the moment it scans for that patches, it will reject it and say, I do not want to install these patches because it might cause my machine to down. Yep. So you can either schedule it to run it weekly, daily, or whichever time you prefer. But of course, please do run it at a time where most of the machine will be online. Because what's the point of running something to those machines if they are not online? So that's the first step, creating a scan profile. The next step is creating a deployment profile. Now, deployment profile is where the patch, the moment it approved, then when does it actually start to execute in the machine. So you can set here for servers, what we do is this. Let's say this is what we commonly do for patching. So for server, I'm just going to skip reboot as well, because you do not want to have the server rebooted in the, let's say, operating session. That will be a disastrous. So what you do is that you can either skip reboot and send email, so do not reboot after update, send email. So you can send it to the help desk so that the help desk can decide, you know what, these are the server that need rebooted. So I just get the right approval from the end user and say, I'm going to reboot this server at, let's say, Saturday. Then that's where you use your reboot script to schedule the reboot of the server. So that's the second step for software management. The third step is finally patch approval. So the patch approval allows you to decide if this patch is bad or this patch is good. So I can, for example, this one is critical and older than 30 days. I read the blog that this KB number having issue, so I just check this box and click reject. So this is the third step of the patching for software management. All right. So finally, you have the dashboard to see whether how many machine is vulnerable, how many machine is out of compliance, and so on. So what does out of compliance mean is that it's either the machine is not, fully checking in with the Kaseya server to do the right patch. So that's why this is the 4 simple steps of Kaseya software management. In order for you to catch up with the patching. All right. So I hope this patching does answer some of the question. Again, if you have any other question, feel free to post in the chat below. All right, my next module that I wanted to show you guys is the policy management. Now, this policy management is not to be confused with the Windows group policy. So Windows group policy that manages Windows settings, such as maybe prevent user from changing some setting, maybe generalize a setting and all. But Kaseya VSA policy is to manage the setting for Kaseya VSA. So let me give you an example. If you have you have onboarded 5 servers, and then you take a look at the 5 servers and say, you know what, I want to set offline monitoring on these 5 servers. And then I want to set disk space, CPU, memory, monitoring, and all this into these 5 servers. So what I do is that I set the alert in the first place. Okay, so after 2 months later, you have another new 5 servers. So if let's say I did not use the policy, I would have reapplied some alerts that previously has been applied to these 5 servers. But there might be a gap where, for instance, if let's say you have applied 10 alerts for these servers, and you attempt to apply the same policy, but you have forgotten maybe 1 or 2 settings. Then over here you have 10 servers with different inconsistency policies, settings. Like maybe, let's say the other 5 servers do not have disk space monitoring allocated. So with Kaseya policy management, this helps you to solve the problem of consistency settings. So when you set a general setting in the policy, Kaseya policy, it will help you to generalize and make all the settings consistent throughout all the machine you have deployed. So how does it work? I'm going to show you guys on the configure. You just need to go ahead and set a policies. So the policy, you can either set it by a global setting, or you can set it by site specific, or maybe setting specific. So what's the difference is that there's a policy that you can set to all the machines, or you can set a machine policy that can apply to only specific servers that use specific monitoring. So in this case, I'm going to create a global specific policy, meaning this setting is applicable to all agents under my Kaseya. So I'm just going to add a folder. So this folder, I'm going to put general sample policy. So over here, general sample policy. I'm going to click on general sample policy, expand it. I can add a policy called this global settings. So it exists, sorry, let me just put global policy settings, and enter. So over here is a template. We need to tie a view to a policy so that it can apply to the right machines. So if let's say if this global policy is to all the agent, I can put all agent. There's a view that's allowed me to select all agents. However, if let's say you want to only apply it to a server, maybe this global policy is only applicable for Windows Server, so go ahead and select all Windows Server. So how does it work is that imagine you're applying this global policy to a mixture of 50 machines, maybe 5 servers and then 7 or maybe let's say 45 workstation. If you apply this setting to the global, only the 5 server will take changes of the configuration and will leave the other 45 untouched. So let's start with the first setting that I wanted to set for all Windows Server. I can go ahead and select alerts because for servers I wanted to know if let's say there's a downtime. So if there's a downtime, notify me. So what I do is add alert, agent status. I'm just going to uncheck the rest, or you can either create alarm or create ticket. For me, I'm just going to go ahead and create an email. So let's say helpdesk@mycompany.com. So what happened is that whenever there's a server that's offline, it will send it to this one so that my help desk can take a look. Then I can set the threshold over here, be it agent has not checked in for maybe if 2 minutes, if it's offline for 2 minutes, send an alert. Then rearm after 1 hour, which I have explained previously. What does the rearm means and what the agent has not checked in is to tell Kaseya, come back after 1 hour and see if the server is still online or offline. Yep. So go ahead and add the alerts. So you can either add any more settings such as monitoring set for the, let's say, load disk space or SQL related, anything you want to add in a single policy. So once you're happy with this, go ahead and save. Once you save it, it's time to assign this policy to an organization. So I can go ahead to go to assignment, organization. Then if let's say this is a department, I can either set by global or I can set by organization specific. So if I set to global means it will apply to the rest of the organization group I've created. So for me, if let's say for alerting, I do not want it to set on the global because I have development group inside here. Because development group, I can shut off the server or turn on the server depending on which time I'm doing the research. So what I do is I select this specific group and I go ahead to find the general sample policy, global. Then I can select and assign. So what happened right now is that this global policy will apply to this specific organization, right? So it will take effect. Now the next thing I want to make sure is that I want to make sure that this policy is tied to this group indefinitely, like make sure that this setting has, this policy has been applied forever so that no one can override it and then leave it there, changes. So what I do is that I need to go to the setting and set the deployment interval and also have the compliance check. So deployment interval allows you whenever there's a new policy setting, set when to deploy it. So let's say for example, you might have 2,000 machines. So if you set 2,000 machines to apply it one shot, it may cost some resources, but it will not that extensive. But what I do is that I recommend to put 5 minutes so that it can stagger the deployment through the policy throughout all the organization. And then you have the compliance check to make sure that, okay, look, every day check at this 5 p.m. to make sure that all my policies is in compliance, that no one has set an override. So how do you set an override is that you go to individual module and then apply a different setting on it, that becomes an override. So with this compliance check, you will check if let's say any of the policy has been overridden by the individual setting, it will reapply the policy again and make sure that the policy has been back in check. Yep. So that's policy management for Kaseya VSA. All right. The final things I want to show you guys about Kaseya VSA is the logs, the remote logs. Now we know Kaseya VSA can be a very powerful tool. You know, you can do remote, you can monitor, you can do scripting, you can do reporting, you can do deployment of software. We also want to know that if any of the engineers or your engineers remoting in, just in case, for instance, if a customer or end user call and say, hey, someone is remoting into my machine, I do not know who is it. So on this agent log, this agent log records every remote session, activities and so, whatnot. So for example, if a user of C3PO calls up and say someone is remoting into my machine, or maybe yesterday someone remote in my machine, I want to know who. So you can go ahead and go to agent log, select the agent specific, and go to agent admin log. Now this is, technician logs. So this is my favorite one because you can't delete this log. At the same time, it tells you some information about who remote in, at what time, from where, and what features did he use. So for example, just now I tell you guys about Live Connect. So Live Connect have multiple functions such as file, transfer, command prompt, services, processes. So over here I can see like, okay, my colleague Ame has logged in from this IP, use this processes module, and at what time, which is 21st July. So now I can tell the user, say, okay, yeah, this is my colleague logging in. And then you can either ask your colleague why is he doing it, or you can confirm with the user, is there any reason why the remote session is being initiated. So that's for Live Connect. At the same time, you have remote control as well, like who remote into the machine, at what time, how long does it last. Yep. So that's the log for you guys, Kaseya logs. It's very helpful for audit purposes. If let's say someone were to come to your company and do an audit saying that, how do you know who's remoting into when? You can show them that this system have all these remote logs recorded that you can't tamper with, and then to show you that who remote into which machine at what time, from where, when, what function. So that's all I want to share about the Kaseya Quick Start from the Kaseya VSA module. However, before that, I want to show you two very important links that you guys can utilize, and it's come free from Kaseya. So one of it is Help Desk. Kaseya Help Desk it comes free for you, so it's for you to log tickets on for your Kaseya related, VSA related issue, or you can check out their articles, which is their knowledge base, Kaseya knowledge base. For instance, you want to know what happened to Kaseya VSA about Mac OS Catalina, it will tell you the information. Or at the same time, let's say one day you can't remote in to the Kaseya portal, you can go ahead and launch a ticket. So you can go ahead and sign up and then launch a ticket and say, okay, right now I'm just going to launch a ticket of Kaseya support, and then this is, you can type in the subject, say, I can't log in. And then say, I can't log in. So this may be a reason if you can't log in, other user could not reset your password because you are the only system admin. So I'm just going to put here, I can't log in, and I am the system admin of VSA. So then the Kaseya product, you can search VSA, Virtual System Administrator. If you are unsure, you can just go ahead and select agent by default. For example, this is a system you can't log in, so you just put system. All right, so system. And then severity, if let's say it's urgent to you and it's affecting a lot of endpoint, you can't remote in, you can't do your troubleshooting, and you can't access anything, you can go ahead and select severity 1. But usually the engineer from Kaseya will evaluate if this is a system dump, because severity means the cloud system cannot be accessible, the Kaseya crash or things like that. Okay, then you can select the subscription, either are you on cloud, Kaseya cloud, or are you on-prem. So on-prem, usually you have a server that's pre-set up for you, whereby SaaS is you receive a login credential information. Then you just go ahead and submit the ticket. A URL, you need to define what URL you're at. So in this case, I'm SAS 49. I just go ahead and select SAS 49. So once you have filled in all the information, you can go ahead and click submit, and there you have a ticket. You just wait for Kaseya support to come back to you. So that's Help Desk. Now another one I want to show you guys is help.kaseya.com, help.kaseya.com. And this is basically an encyclopedia of Kaseya VSA. Any other products such as ranging from antivirus, backup, Kaseya VSA. So for yourself, if let's say you're using Kaseya Virtual System Administrator, go ahead and take a look at these three. So let's say if you have question about agent procedure, you can either ask us, or you can come to this guidebook and see what do they say about it. Yep. So that's Kaseya Quick Start. So just to remind you, everyone here, if you have any question, feel free to drop your question in a box, and we are glad to help you. So that's all from Kaseya VSA slides and Kaseya Quick Start. So I really thank you guys for coming. And once again, if you have any question, feel free to drop it into the chat box, and we'll try our best to answer your question. And once again, thank you all for coming to Kaseya Quick Start training. Hope you guys have a great day, and take care.